When I collapsed helplessly at the hospital emergency room door, no one even offered to help. My old jacket, my pants that were about to fall apart, my worn-out shoes, and my simple appearance were enough for them. In their eyes, I was just a poor, destitute woman, someone not worth their time. But what they didn't know was that I had paid for everything, from the lights on the ceiling to the tools in their hands. Yes, that hospital was my hospital. Now I'm going to tell you about that night I can't forget. "Shut up and do what I say," Amelia yelled. It was the first time I had seen her like this. "If we lose this woman, you're all finished, understand?" she said sternly. Natalie flinched and started running. Even though she didn't understand, she had to do her job. They took her to the operating room. "Hang in there, Camille. I won't let you die. I promised your father I would take care of you. Hang in there." Her words echoed in my ears. Amelia was also uncomfortable because this hospital was not what it used to be. In the operating room, the only thing I could think about was that if I survived this night, I would reveal everyone's true colors. From then on, it was a storm of no return. When I woke up, everything was white, a familiar whiteness. It was the hospital ceiling. I couldn't remember at first, but then I started to remember everything. Chest pain, Lucas turning his back and leaving, Amelia's scream. I tried to look around, but everything hurt. There were bandages on my chest, IV tubes in my arms. The monitors beeped. I was in intensive care, in the intensive care unit of my own hospital. "Camille," a voice said. Amelia was sitting next to me. I hadn't noticed. Her eyes were swollen. She must have been crying. Holding my hand, she said, "Thank God," her voice trembling. "I thought we'd lost you," she said. I tried to speak, but my throat was dry. Amelia immediately brought water and gave it to me through a straw. "What happened to me?" I managed to say. "You had a major heart attack. Anterior myocardial infarction. The LAD artery was completely blocked. We opened it up in a 40-minute surgery. We placed a stent. If we had been 5 minutes later," she paused, tears streaming down her face, "we would have lost you." I had 40 minutes left. So while I was waiting in the ER, my heart was slowly dying every second, and no one cared. "Who performed the surgery?" I asked. Amelia's face tensed. "Dr. Lucas and his team." I wanted to laugh, but it hurt. The man who left me to die in the hallway had performed my surgery and saved my life. It was like a joke. "Do they know?" I asked. "Who I am?" "No," Amelia said quickly. "I didn't tell anyone. I just presented it as an emergency cardiac case. They noticed I was paying special attention, but they didn't question it. They still think you're that poor woman." At my own engagement party, his family called security on me. His mother said, "This woman does not belong here." While 200 guests watched, they had me thrown out like a criminal. What they didn't know was this: the security company, the venue, the catering company. All of them were mine. I owned everything they were standing on. Before the story begins, if you enjoy cold-served revenge stories and seeing people get what they deserve so fast, make sure to hit Saturday, the Grandeur Mansion, 200 guests, catering company, security, event coordinator. "She's arranged everything," he said, and I was shocked. I told him it was too much, but he said, "This is normal for our family." The Grandeur Mansion, my venue, my staff, my security team, my catering company. And Patricia Walsh had absolutely no idea. Mrs. Patricia Walsh had absolutely no idea. I felt something cold settle in my chest. This was a test I hadn't planned for, but it was happening anyway. "Do your family know what I do for a living?" I asked nervously. Derek shifted uncomfortably. "I told them you work in event coordination. My mother thought it was something like waitressing." I tried to explain, but she didn't really listen. He hadn't corrected her. That was the important detail. He allowed his mother to believe I was of a lower status than them and said nothing. "Derek," I said slowly, "do you want me to meet your family as I am? Or do you want me to show them who I really am?" He looked confused. "What do you mean?" "Nothing," I said, making a decision. "Never mind. I'll meet them on Saturday." That week, I made phone calls. I called Marcus, the head of security at the Grandeur Mansion. "Marcus, there's an event this Saturday, the Walsh engagement party. I want full details about everything. Who booked it, what they requested, how they're treating the staff." Marcus knew me well enough not to ask questions. "I'm on it, boss." Then I called my executive assistant, Helen. "Helen, I want you to pull all the contracts for the Walsh event this Saturday. Venue rental, catering agreement, security contract. I want to know exactly what they signed." "Is everything okay, Sophia?" "I'm just doing a little research." By Friday night, I had the full picture. Patricia Walsh had rented my venue in her own name, demanded the most luxurious options, and treated my staff absolutely horribly. She had called the event coordinators incompetent, rejected 3 different menu proposals, and told the security team they looked unprofessional. She had no idea she was belittling my people, my staff, my company. Oh, this was going to be very interesting. Finally, Saturday evening arrived. I stood in front of my closet, making a choice. I chose a knee-length navy blue dress. Elegant, but definitely not something custom-made. Simple jewelry, modest heels. I did my own hair as well. I tried to achieve a natural look. In the end, I looked in the mirror and had achieved the simplicity I wanted. I was a normal person. Not a company CEO, not a billionaire, just Sophia. Derek came to pick me up, but he looked tense. When he saw me, something flickered in his eyes. Was it disappointment or concern? But he told me I looked very beautiful. The drive to the Grandeur Mansion was quiet. Derek kept fiddling with his collar. "Listen," he finally said, "my family can be a bit intense. It can be like that, especially my mother. She has strong opinions about certain things. Just try not to take anything personally, okay?" A red flag, a massive, waving danger sign. What kind of things could she say that I shouldn't take personally? I asked. She's just very traditional. She has opinions about what's appropriate and what's proper. She means well. Derek, do your family think I'm good enough for you? Silence. My answer was right there. As we approached the Grandeur Mansion, my heart was pounding out of my chest. This place was my favorite venue, my pride and joy. My name is Alara, and I own a restaurant. Today, I deliberately put on my apron and started washing dishes, because 3 customers were treating my staff very badly, and I needed to teach them a lesson. As I scrubbed the same plate 4 times, the soapy water felt hot on my hands. My hands were starting to wrinkle. The 7th table was the problem. From here, I could hear them even above the noise of the kitchen, the sizzling of the pans, the buzz of a busy Friday night in downtown Seattle. Their voices cut through everything like nails on a chalkboard. "Excuse me? Excuse me?" The blonde woman's voice was shrill and demanding. "This tastes like tap water. I specifically asked for Pellegrino." I watched from the kitchen window. I watched my waitress Maria apologize for the 3rd time. Waitress Maria has been working with me for 4 years. She's using the money she earns here to go to nursing school. Her hands were shaking as she tried to explain that the water was actually Pellegrino. But I've gone too far. Let's back up. This morning started out like any other. At 6 a.m., I arrived at Ember and Oak, my restaurant, my baby, my whole world. I truly loved my restaurant. I opened the heavy oak doors, breathed in the familiar wood polish and last night's rosemary scent, and got to work. Read the menu, I can do that myself. I want to know what's worth ordering, what's worth eating, she said. Maria began to describe the most popular dishes, but the women weren't satisfied with any of them. Halibut fried in lemon butter, dry-aged ribeye. Our chef spent 2 years perfecting these pumpkin ravioli. He was knowledgeable, enthusiastic, and patient. They interrupted him 17 times. Is the fish fresh? Of course, ma'am. We get it from local suppliers. How fresh? As fresh as if it were caught this morning? Or as fresh as if it had been sitting in a truck for 3 days? Does the steak come with a side dish? Yes, you can choose. What are the options? Roasted vegetables, truffle mashed potatoes, truffles, real truffles, or fake truffle oil. Is the ravioli vegetarian? Yes, and it's one of our special dishes. Is it vegan? No, ma'am, the pasta has cheese and eggs, but Then why are you recommending it? I said I'm vegetarian, not vegan. Do you know the difference? Maria hadn't said anything about the diet sections. If they had given her a chance to speak, she would have said it. I watched her shake her head, smile, and apologize for things that weren't her fault. The people at the surrounding tables were watching them. The other 2 waiters were looking at each other. And at that moment, I decided I had to put these types, who came here to satisfy their egos and attract attention, in their place. I returned to my office, closed the door, and changed my clothes. I took off my work outfit, the black pants and silk blouse I always wore when meeting clients, and pulled an old kitchen apron from my closet, the kind my dishwashers wore, stained, worn, ordinary. I tied the apron around my waist, pulled my hair into a messy bun, and went into the kitchen. Chef, I said to Marcus, I want you to trust me. He looked up from the halibut he was placing on plates. Boss? I'm going on a secret mission. Marcus raised his eyebrows but didn't ask any questions. That's why I love him. He always trusts me. We've been working together for 10 years and he knows when to go with the flow. What do you want? What do you need, boss? He said. You need to send me to table number 7. And no matter what, you need to go with me. He looked at the 3 women at the kitchen window, then turned back to me. A sly smile slowly spread across his face. This is going to be fun, he said. I grabbed a service cart and headed out to the dining room. The noise hit me immediately, a beautiful symphony of chaos. But I tuned it all out. My target was table number 7. As I approached, I could hear the blonde woman, whose name I would later learn was Tiffany, complaining about the bread. $300. That was what they paid me to serve champagne at Manhattan's most exclusive charity gala. $300 to be invisible, to smile politely while billionaires talked about their 3rd vacation homes and complained about the maintenance costs of their yachts. I watched them from behind my silver tray, these people who had everything, and I wondered what it felt like to never worry about money. But there's something about being invisible. You see everything. And what I saw that night in the Plaza Hotel's ballroom would haunt me forever. My name is Rebecca Chen, and 6 months ago I was working 2 jobs just to keep my studio apartment in Queens afloat. During the day, it's hard to find people who pay their bills on time. I'm a graphic designer who finds those people. At night, I work catering. Basically, like a waitress. They call it the gig economy. But my only goal was survival. My mother always said I should become a doctor like my cousin Jennifer, but what truly caught my attention, what excited me, was art. Yes, hey new girl, one of the other servers said, a man named Miguel, nudging me with his elbow. Watch out for Patricia. She's in war mode tonight. She already fired a server just for setting down a glass a little too loudly. Are you serious? I asked. It looked like this night was going to be stressful. I'm dead serious. These people are crazy. I once worked a party where someone got fired just for making eye contact with the host's wife. Eye contact? I nodded and returned to the ballroom. The energy had shifted slightly. The effects of the champagne were starting to show. I moved through my assigned section, offering drinks, collecting empty glasses, becoming professionally invisible. That was when I heard that woman's voice, Patricia Whitmore's, for the first time, sharp and slicing through the general hum like a knife. "You, Tray Girl!" I turned and it felt like my heart was about to seize. She was pointing directly at me, her perfectly manicured finger extended like an accusation. Keeping my professional smile, I walked over to her. "Yes, ma'am." "What's your name?" "Rebecca, ma'am." "Well, Rebecca, do you see how slowly the hors d'oeuvres are coming out? This is completely unacceptable. These people paid $20,000 per plate to be here, and the service is amateurish. Do you understand what I mean? $20,000 per plate. These people must have lost their minds. That amount was equal to 7 months of what I earned, and these people were spending it on a single meal." "I understand, ma'am. I'll make sure that—" "I don't want excuses," she cut me off. "I want results. This is supposed to be a professional event, not a backyard barbecue. Get it together." I nodded and walked away. My cheeks were burning with humiliation. A few guests had seen us and had actually stopped their conversations just to watch. They were clearly enjoying it. I was just another servant being put in her place, the evening's entertainment. The next hour passed in a blur of frantic movement. Patricia found fault with everything I did: the way I carried my tray, the angle at which I approached guests, even my posture during the moments when I wasn't actively serving. She took pleasure in criticizing and humiliating me in front of others, asserting her dominance over someone who couldn't fight back. Then came the announcement that changed everything. "Ladies and gentlemen," the sound system boomed. "Please." I was smiling as I signed the divorce papers, but it was a real smile, the kind that made David, who would soon be my ex-husband, shift uncomfortably in his leather chair. He wanted to see me crying, begging, falling apart. Instead, I took the expensive pen his lawyer handed me and signed my name at the bottom of every page with calm, steady hands. "Is that it?" David's voice, the one thing I had hated throughout our 8-year marriage. No fighting at all? No arguments? I lifted my head and looked at him. The man I once valued now felt like an enemy to me. He sat across from me in his $3,000 suit, wearing that self-assured expression on his face. "You told me I could take whatever I wanted in the agreement, David. Do you remember?" He waved his hand carelessly. "Yeah, take the Honda, take a few belongings too. We're moving to the coast with Amanda anyway." Amanda, his assistant of 8 years, now turned into his mistress. His lawyer, a sharply dressed man named Preston, slid another document across the mahogany table. Richard opened the door. "After you, Ms. Mitchell." I walked in with my head held high. Jennifer and Richard were on either side of me, like my bodyguards. David lifted his head and looked at me, felt the need to look at my outfit a second time, and then grinned. "Wow, Sarah, aren't you a little overdressed for signing divorce papers? Where did you get the money to buy that suit?" "Oh, wait. From the $50,000 I gave you." He nudged Preston with his elbow, but Preston didn't laugh. On the contrary, Preston looked uncomfortable. He looked at Richard with a surprised expression, as if he were trying to remember something. I went to the plaintiff's table. Richard came as well and took the documents out of his briefcase. The bailiff entered and announced, "All rise for the Honorable Judge Matthews." We stood up. Judge Matthews, a woman in her 60s with sharp eyes and the impression of someone who had seen everything and was impressed by nothing, entered. She sat down. We sat down as well, and she immediately began reviewing the file. "Mitchell versus Mitchell. Dissolution of marriage. It appears there is a mutually agreed upon settlement," she said, looking at both tables. Preston stood up. "Yes, Your Honor. Both parties have signed the decision to divorce and the property settlement agreement. Everything is finalized. Ms. Mitchell, do you accept these terms?" I slowly stood up. Yes, Your Honor. My husband said I could take whatever I wanted. I am simply abiding by this agreement. David began to snicker. He fell silent under the judge's gaze. She continued reading. Then she stopped. She frowned. She reread something. Her eyes widened slightly, very slightly, but I noticed. She turned to Preston. Counselor, are you aware of the collateral clause tied to Mitchell and Associates Marketing? Preston's face went completely white. Which clause, Your Honor? David leaned forward and whispered. Preston began flipping through the documents. Richard stood up calmly. Your Honor, if I may, I represent Ms. Mitchell in matters related to the business assets. 3 years ago, Ms. Mitchell provided the full collateral for the $4 million business loan taken to grow Mitchell and Associates. The agreement clearly states that in the event of a divorce, full ownership of the business is to be transferred to Ms. Mitchell, who assumed all financial risk. David's face shifted through colors. What? No, that can't be. Wait. Judge Matthews raised her hand, silencing David. Mr. Mitchell, you'll have a chance to speak. Please continue, Mr. Harrison. Richard produced the documents and handed them to the judge. This is the original loan agreement signed by both parties 3 years ago. Page 7, Section 12, subsection C clearly states the ownership transfer condition. Mr. Mitchell's signature is right here. He pointed to the page. Preston's hands were shaking as he read. His face turned from pale to ashen. Your Honor, I was not aware of this agreement. It was not listed in our asset inventory. Because your client never told you, Richard said calmly. And under the divorce agreement signed this morning, Mr. Mitchell agreed that Mrs. Mitchell could take whatever she wanted from the marital assets. This business was entirely secured by her collateral. Legally speaking, she has every right to take it. David jumped to his feet. This is ridiculous, he shouted. That's my company. I built it. With my money, I said quietly as I stood up. Everyone in the courtroom had started looking at me. With my inheritance, with my grandmother's property, with every single asset I owned, David. You couldn't have gotten that loan without me, remember? You begged me to help you. His face twisted with anger. You tricked me. You knew this would happen. I protected myself. There's a difference. My voice was calm, steady, strong. You signed that agreement of your own free will. Your lawyer at the time explained the clause to you. And you laughed and said, Sarah would never divorce me. She's too dependent. Do you remember saying that, David? Amanda jumped to her feet, confused. David, what's going on? Sit down, David hissed. Judge Matthews struck her gavel. Order. Everyone sit down immediately. She turned to Preston. Counselor, did your client sign the divorce agreement this morning and agree that Ms. Mitchell could take whatever she wanted? She asked. Preston did not look well. His face had gone pale. Yes, Your Honor, he did. And is this business loan matter real? It appears so, Your Honor. The signatures match. The notary seal is valid, and then the company belongs to Ms. Mitchell. Judge Matthews gave David a look that bordered on contempt. Mr. Mitchell, you made your bed. Now you will lie in it. David's voice sounded like it was shrinking inside him. You can't do this to me. That company is worth millions of dollars. No, I corrected him, my voice cutting through the panic like a knife. You were the one trying to take everything from me. You cheated on me, humiliated me. You tried to leave me with a second-hand car and a few scraps. I just wanted there to be a price for underestimating me. The courtroom fell into a deathly silence. Even the judge had frozen. Richard continued. Additionally, Your Honor, we have documentation that Mr. Mitchell has been planning to transfer the company to a third party. Specifically, he planned to transfer it to Amanda, who is currently present in this courtroom. Since Mr. Mitchell is no longer the owner of the company, this transfer is clearly invalid. Amanda gasped, trembling. All eyes turned to her. Her face flushed, then turned white. David, you told me. You promised me that once we got married, half of the company would be mine. David was gesturing for her to be quiet. You said we would run it together. We were going to be partners. Her words were growing louder. I quit my job for you. I waited for you to divorce her so we could start our life together.